My favorite shelter for camping in snow is an igloo. They're sturdy, warm, have plenty of headroom. The only downside is they take quite a bit longer to build than other snow shelters. Step one is to draw a circle in the snow. A 7-foot diameter is what I usually use. It gives me adequate headroom to sleep 1 or 2 people. I have done them up to a 10-foot diameter. Next, remove any loose surface snow down to the crusted layer. Once I'm down to good crusted snow, I will dig a narrow pit that I can stand in down to the desired depth. In this case, it was ground level. And then I will start to cut blocks and set those around the exterior of the circle to use later. The snow conditions on this day were such that I had about 20 inches of good crusted snow, and then below that it was too soft to make into blocks. Here I am cutting out the last couple of blocks and then removing the loose snow, tossing it outside, getting ready to start setting my first row of blocks now. Before going any further, I mark the center point on the floor and attach a cord, which I then use to measure the distance from the floor center to the rim of the pit. The importance of that cord will become very evident as we continue on through this video. Next step is to make sure that the rim of the pit is firm, and then I will begin placing the blocks to form the first ring. The two most important elements of igloo building, in my opinion, are roof curvature and cutting the block edges. The key to cutting block edges is the angle at which you cut them. Every seam between blocks must point at the center point on the floor. I find it very helpful to use the cord attached to the center of the floor as a guide for cutting my block ends at the right angle. I imagine my cord as if it were the spoke of a wheel attached directly to the hub, and I just need to make sure that my saw is lined up with that cord when I make my cuts on the ends of each block. Once I've completed the ring, I slope the top of each block by cutting it on an angle aimed at the center point on the floor. This ensures that the roof will be curved in the shape of a dome. I use the cord again to set the angle on the first block or two, and then I'll maintain that angle all around without necessarily having to use the cord anymore. When cutting the top off of your ring of blocks, it's a good idea to leave at least one block taller than all the rest. That will become your anchor point for the next row of blocks. Having two contact edges for your first block of this new ring is almost essential to keep that block from falling in. Use the measuring cord that's attached to the center of your igloo floor to make sure that these new blocks are leaning inward at the proper angle. The second ring of blocks is complete, and I'm out of blocks. So I need to get out, and I'll do that by digging the entrance to the igloo. Choose your spot carefully so those blocks don't cave in. Each time you complete a ring of blocks, you should plug all the gaps from the outside by cutting and tapping in snow wedges. You will eventually need more blocks than the igloo pit provided. So you'll have to start a quarry somewhere nearby. From there, I'll haul blocks back to the igloo, and we'll stack enough inside to complete each new ring. I'm now ready to start ring 3. However, after the second ring was done, I discovered that I didn't have a good anchor point for starting the next one. So to fix that, I cut about halfway down into the ring and inserted a tall block for my anchor. Then after properly sloping the top of the ring, I started laying new blocks, beginning at the anchor point. Once a ring is complete, it won't cave in. The angle of the cuts, combined with gravity, force the blocks together, but up until then you have to be pretty careful as you add individual blocks. One trick that helps keep blocks from falling as they're added is to prop them up with a ski pole. I also stick an extra saw into the igloo wall just below each new block for some added support. I typically use 2 poles and 3 saws when I work by myself, leapfrogging them along as I work to finish the ring. As always, each time you finish a ring, fill the gaps between the blocks from the outside. Now, continue adding rings of blocks until the opening at the top of the igloo is about shoulder width. And don't forget to angle the top of each completed ring toward the center point on the floor before you start the next ring. To make a perfect dome, the top of each ring should be 1 cord length from the floor center. The last ring is finally in place, and I'm standing on the floor of the igloo in the center just to show you how tall the igloo is. Here's a view from inside. Be sure to slope all the edges of this hole toward the floor's center, then close the hole by adding a single cap block that's long enough to span the opening. Before putting the cap up through the hole, trim its ends to slope inward. Once the cap is in place, work your saw between the seams until the block settles flush with the rest of the ceiling. Fill the remaining gaps by going outside and cutting some snow wedges that then you'll drop into place, tap gently, and cut off flush with the remainder of the roof. My last step is to finish the entrance by extending the access trench and adding a roof. The roof is made by tipping pairs of blocks against one another and then running a saw between their tops to set them flush. Then I finish the entrance by filling the gaps with snow wedges. And there you have it, finished igloo. As I said at the beginning, it takes quite a bit of time, especially when you're doing it by yourself. This one took me 7 hours to complete, and it was pretty exhausting. Now here's a look inside of the finished igloo. Again, notice, looking up at the roof here, how all of the seams face the center as spokes of a wheel are radiating out from a hub. You can see there's adequate floor space for 2 people to sleep and plenty of headroom. As a finishing touch, I'll usually throw a layer of loose snow over the entire exterior of the dome for an added layer of protection from sun and wind. Just extends the life of the igloo a little bit better. So there you have it. Easy step-by-step instructions for building an igloo.